The Prime Minister has been on trial for various corruption allegations, which I'll get to in a second. They've all fallen apart, but no big deal. The prosecution rested its case in shambles in August. And now on December 2nd, the Prime Minister's defense attorney is supposed to start with his case, providing his case. And the first witness that is supposed to be testifying on behalf of the Prime Minister is the Prime Minister himself. And in all the previous 4 years of this trial, each of the witnesses has been expected to testify 3 days a week. And in the case of the Prime Minister, it's supposed to last for anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks. Now, each witness who testifies in hearings that last about 7 hours. So we're talking about testimony from the Prime Minister of 21 hours a week, every week for the next 3 to 6 weeks, in order to complete his testimony on behalf of himself in this trial. And it's essential, apparently, from the defense's perspective, that he be the first witness in the trial for himself. So now, under normal circumstances, if Israel wasn't in a state of war, it would probably be possible for the Prime Minister to figure out a way to get this done. But now we're in war. We're in a war for our national survival, right? We're being mauled by hundreds of missiles and drones and rockets every single day, not only from Lebanon, from Hezbollah, but also from Iran's terror proxies in Iraq and in Syria and in Yemen, the Houthis. So we're getting slammed from with missiles from 4 different fronts, mainly from Lebanon, but not only. And we're in a very precarious time diplomatically, where you have a hostile administration that is looking for a way to harm Israel as it walks out the door, and an incoming, very friendly administration that isn't in power. So this is these are dangerous shoals that have to be tread very carefully, and you have to and you have to do it while you have soldiers who are fighting in very, very difficult battles, both in Gaza and in Lebanon. Yesterday, we lost 6 more soldiers. Obviously, the Prime Minister has to devote all of his time and efforts to leading Israel in this war. But no, the court expects him to begin testifying 21 hours a week for between 3 to 6 weeks on December 2nd. So Prime Minister Netanyahu's attorney, Amit Haddad, petitioned the district court in Jerusalem that's hearing the case, and asked the 3-judge panel to allow them to delay the opening of the defense's case for 2 months. He said, we're not asking for postponement indefinitely. We're not asking for the trial to be frozen until the war is over. We're asking for another 2 months of delay. And the prosecution went nuts. You'd think that this was a normal request. In fact, it's very modest, because in normal operating democracies, if a prime minister is on trial, then either the entire proceeding against him is frozen for the entire period that he's serving as prime minister or president of the country, or the charges against him are dropped altogether, because you don't want the leader of your country, and this is whether in peace or at war, to be in any way distracted by the fact that he has to defend himself in criminal proceedings. So what's interesting about the media is that they've played a pivotal role here in intimidating the judges at the district court, because when it was clear that Netanyahu's attorney was going to make this request to the district court, you started getting all the court reporters doing these leery reports, threatening the judges in the district court with humiliation, with shame, with attacking them if they even think for a second that he deserves a postponement of his testimony. Then they're going to go down in history. And this was in Channel 12, Guy Pelly, Channel 13, Aviad Glickman. All of these people who have been part of the lawfare operation, pivotal, key characters in the cast of characters that has been carrying out this legal coup against the prime minister. So they've been doing that. And so they're setting it up right now. They're setting it up because he said, he can't be prime minister and give testimony at the same time. So now, just before I started recording this show, I saw the news brief that said that Netanyahu said, fine, I'm going to give my testimony on December 2nd. Go to hell. But here's the problem, right? I don't want him to give testimony on December 2nd. I'm sure that he's going to just whack every single ball that they throw him out of the court, and they're going to look like idiots. There's no doubt in my mind that his testimony is going to clear him, and they're going to look terrible when he's done. But I don't care. That's not what I care about. What I care about is having a prime minister who's running the war. I don't want this trial right now. I want this trial to be postponed until the cows come home. As far as I'm concerned, it's not important. I voted for Netanyahu, knowing full well that he was holding trial, and I didn't care. And here I just want to go back for a second to talk about, remember, like a little reminder of what this trial is about. So, like a little reminder of what this trial is about. So Netanyahu was indicted in 2019, just before the elections in April of 2019, in an open bid to make him lose, to foment his defeat in the election. And it was stunning. It was actually the Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit announced Netanyahu was that he was going to indict Netanyahu. Well, that was, we remember he had 4 elections. So right before the second elections, he announced that he was going to indict him. But before the 19 elections, he announced that he was thinking about indicting him, which is like, who does that? But he did it in order to try to change the outcome of the elections. And then he indicted him before, I think, the third election. And before the second election, he said he gave a press conference while Netanyahu was at the White House with Trump, and they were unveiling the deal of the century for peace. And there was a split screen. There was Avichai Mandelblit on the right, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Donald Trump on the left in the White House. And they were announcing the peace plan, and he was announcing that he wanted to send Netanyahu to jail. Okay, so there are 3 charges that Netanyahu is accused of, is indicted for in 3 different filings. So they're all being tried, one after the other. So and they're named by numbers. So one is case 1,000, one is case 2,000, and one is case 4,000. He was supposed to be 3,000, but they had nothing to indict him on in that one, so they dropped it. So just case 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000. So case 1,000, I'm just going to do this very briefly. He was accused of getting, over a period of 5 years, around $250,000 worth of gifts from 2 friends. Okay. And then during the prosecution's case, all of that charge. Oh, and in exchange, he was supposed to have given favors to one of the people who gave him these presents. Former Israeli security guy who's been a Hollywood producer for about 25 years, named Arnon Milchan. Okay, so $250,000 in gifts over a 5-year period. And during examination, during the prosecution's case, what was discovered was actually he and his wife received about a tenth of that amount, so maybe around $25,000 in gifts over a period of 5 years. And at the same time, they were giving reciprocal gifts to their friends. So it's not illegal to get gifts from friends. The amount that they actually got, and this is just sort of the largest possible amount that they got, was worth a quarter of what they claimed. A tenth of what they claimed. And there was no breach of faith because A, they're allowed, B, there was nothing to it. They got champagne or cigars around the holidays, their birthdays, stuff like that. Nothing, no big deal. And they themselves were giving reciprocal gifts to their friends. And it worked out that all of the supposed favors that Netanyahu did for his friend Arnon Milchan, he didn't do. So the charges completely fell apart. And this was supposed to be the sure case, that there was absolutely no way that this was going to break apart. It broke apart. Case 2000 was a case that claimed, and he is not indicted there for getting illegal gifts. He's indicted of a nebulous claim of breach of trust. So this is something that's just a manufactured claim that is completely up to the judge to determine whether there was a breach. But there was obviously no breach of trust here, because he didn't get what they claim he got, and he didn't do what they claimed he did. So that case fell apart in the prosecution's case. Case 2000, also a breach of trust case. And what was the case about here? They claimed that he was offered a bribe by the publisher of Israel's now second largest daily newspaper, Yediot Ahronot, which has been hounding Netanyahu basically since he entered politics in the 1980s. They hate him. And for many, many years, Yediot Ahronot was a monopoly in the newspaper market. And if you add to that the broadcast interests that the Yediot Ahronot group has in both Israeli television and in Israeli radio, it was a media monopoly in general. And then in 2007, competing newspaper, Yisrael Hayom, began being published by the late magnate Sheldon Adelson, and it was supposed to offer a contrary right-wing view to Yediot Ahronot, which is a radical leftist newspaper. So you had one radical leftist newspaper that had a monopoly share on the entire media market. In 2007, Sheldon Adelson started publishing this free newspaper called Israel Hayom. And it was undermining Yediot Ahronot's not only power and influence, but also their profit margin, because it was a free newspaper that was able to keep going because of advertising revenue. And people were taking that for free rather than buying Yediot Ahronot. So the claim was that in a series of meetings in 2014 between Netanyahu and Arnon Moses, Arnon Moses asked Netanyahu to get his friend Sheldon Adelson to scale back the amount of papers, the distribution of Yediot Ahronot, and in exchange he would relent in a law that he was trying to get passed in the Knesset that was going to force Israel Hayom to close by forcing it to charge money for the newspaper. And so under examination, it worked out that no, in fact, that Netanyahu never made any promise to Arnon Milchik. To the contrary, he brought down his own government in order to block the bill, the Israel Hayom bill, from passing through the Knesset after a preliminary reading. He brought his own government down and went to new elections in 2015 to protect Israel Hayom from this law that was drafted by Noni Moses and put forward by one of Noni Moses's favorite politicians, then Justice Minister Tzipi Livni. Okay, so it was like there was a corrupt relationship between Noni Moses and Yediot Ahronot and a bunch of politicians, 43, who voted on behalf of this law. And he had an acrimonious relationship with Netanyahu that always got he always gave bad coverage, horrible, withering coverage. He still does to this day against Netanyahu. And yet Netanyahu is indicted for breach of trust because he met with Noni Moses. There's no crime. There's no whiff of a crime, but it doesn't matter. They were using these as a means to try to say that he was in an influence peddling mode with Noni Moses, which didn't happen. So that case also fell apart during the prosecution's presentation of their witnesses. The third case is case 4000, and it's a case in which Netanyahu has been indicted for bribery, for accepting bribes, in which he received positive coverage from a website called Walla. And in exchange, he gave regulatory favors to the corporation that owned Walla, Bezeq Telecommunication Corporation, that was owned by a friend of Netanyahu's named Shaul Alovich. Okay, and here the claim fell apart in two ways. First, all of the witnesses for the prosecution failed to make the claim that Netanyahu had given any regulatory favors to Bezeq, because he didn't. He wasn't involved in it. And in fact, the regulatory environment that Netanyahu had initiated with Bezeq was harmful to Bezeq. So not only did it not get any favors, actually Netanyahu's policies were harming Bezeq Telecommunication conglomerate. And on the other hand, of the bribe, essentially, that he was supposed to be getting positive coverage from this website that was owned by Shaul Alovich and by Walla, works out that he got horrible coverage, almost uniformly terrible coverage on the website, so that he got terrible coverage and he gave no regulatory favors. But he's still under indictment for bribery. He's still being charged with bribery. And at the end of the prosecution's case on bribery, the judges gently asked them to reconsider the charge and maybe drop it. And they refused, because the whole point is not that he did something bad. It's that he's on trial and therefore they can oust him. They're using it as lawfare. It's not legal. And so, they won't let go of the charge because it's the only thing that's serious among the three charges that he's been charged with. Because what is breach of trust? It's nothing. And those cases also fell apart. So they go into the defense presentation with nothing. This is a crazy claim by the prosecution, but that's their claim. It makes no sense. We're in the middle of a war. He is the prime minister, and he's saying, no. He has to start his testimony now. And then the judges, you would have thought, well, they would definitely accept the prime minister's attorney's request because it's so obviously reasonable and modest. But no, they agreed with the prosecution, and they said, nope. The prime minister has to begin testifying. Nothing material has changed since we made that determination in the past, like that we're at war. No, nothing. He has to start, like it or not, on December 2nd, deal with it. So what's interesting about this is why is all this happening? Any reasonable person would look at this situation and say, this is insane. How can you require the prime minister to be tied to the witness stand for 21 hours a week? For 3 to 6 weeks. That makes absolutely no sense in examination, cross-examination. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to your country? Obviously, the public interest is harmed by your decision. And here's the rub. Well, there's the public and there's a legal fraternity, and the public be damned because the legal fraternity has determined that the only important thing in the state of Israel is ousting Netanyahu from power, which is why they've been carrying out this prosecution all along. And so what are they actually trying to do here? When Netanyahu was elected in November 2022, one of the many in-house NGOs that work hand in glove with the Supreme Court to give the Supreme Court the ability to govern from the bench, they petitioned the Supreme Court and said that Netanyahu is unfit to govern and should be blocked from forming the next government because he's on trial. And Netanyahu's attorneys responded to the petition and said there's no reason why Netanyahu can't perform the duties of office while he's standing trial. And therefore, he's not unfit to serve because he can do both at the same time. Okay? And so the justice says instead of throwing this case out and not accepting it because it's insane that anybody thinks that they have the power to determine whether the man who was just elected prime minister in a democratic election in the country has that it's not theirs to decide. The public just decided that Netanyahu is going to be the next prime minister. Not only did the Likud get far more mandates in the Knesset than any other party, but it was clear that there were four parties, all of whose voters voted for those parties, understanding that they were going to be coalition members in a Netanyahu-led government. So you had over 2 million Israelis who voted for this government, and they got 64 seats out of 120 in the normally evenly split Knesset. And there's no question that he was going to be forming the next coalition government. So rather than saying we don't have any standing here, we're not a side in this is a democratic determination by the voters in an election. They accepted adjudicating this insane petition, and they said, okay, we'll accept the prime minister's claim that he can do both. Okay, not that it was unjust to even think for a second that there was any question that that a prime minister could be ousted from power because he's standing trial, right? No, that wasn't what the court did. So now what's going to happen? You're going to get a petition to the court. This is as clear as day from the same, in-house NGO that works with the court. It's probably going to be the Association of Civil Rights in Israel, because that's what they do. They conduct lawfare against the right through the Supreme Court. And they're going to say, look, the prime minister's office just said that he can't be prime minister and give testimony at the same time, and therefore you have to declare that he's unfit and oust him from power. And we can expect the Supreme Court to do so that Israel is in the midst of a constitutional crisis, and the district court judges, the 3-judge panel that just ruled that Netanyahu has to testify, and the prosecutors who insisted that he testify, were teeing off this move. So the move is to oust Netanyahu from power because he can't be prime minister and give testimony for 21 hours at once. I mean, just think about it. Say that there's, something urgent that requires the prime minister's attention, that he has to know about in real time. You're not allowed to interrupt the proceedings of the court in order to do it. There's another reason why this shouldn't be happening. The Netanyahu's private home was bombed by a drone just a few weeks ago. He's working only in safe rooms now because it's not safe for him to be in places that are known and that are vulnerable to missile or drone attack. It's particularly drone attack because Israel hasn't gotten the technology to bring down drones, even when they're within our airspace and they've been identified. We don't have a very good rate of bringing them down. Okay, we don't have that surefire technology like we have with Iron Dome for the rockets and the mortars and the short range missiles. So we're in this situation where he was already attacked by a drone. His house, his private residence, was hit by a drone, and if it's known, everybody knows the location of the district court in Jerusalem. All you have to do is locate it on Google Maps or Waze, right? So you have all the targeting information right there for Hezbollah sitting there, right? And so he can be shot. They know that between the hours of 8 and 3 or 8 and 4 every day, he's going to be sitting and giving testimony in a specific courtroom in the district court. And so it's just, so putting him there not only endangers the prime minister of Israel, it endangers everybody involved in his court case. And then, there was a reporter from one of the channels yesterday. He went to look at the shelter to see whether it's possible to hold the trial in the bomb shelter in the district court. And lo and behold, the answer is absolutely not. There's no way to hold it there because it's not a real bomb shelter, and it's certainly incapable of holding hearings. So there's no possibility of protecting the prime minister while he's giving testimony, and there's no way of protecting the other people in the courtroom while the prime minister is in the courtroom. Okay, so it's insane. It's insane on a national security level. It's insane on the personal safety of the prime minister, and it's just insane from a democratic perspective. They say that the public interest is harmed if he doesn't. No, the public interest is harmed if he does, right? But that's not the point. The point is that the public be damned. These people want to oust the prime minister, and they see this as their golden opportunity to do so. Because if he can't give testimony and be prime minister at the same time, then he can't be prime minister. Because obviously the testimony is more important than his duties as prime minister, for which he was elected by we the people. But who the hell are you the people? We, the justices of the Supreme Court, the judges of the district court in Jerusalem, and of course the state's prosecution and the media. By the way, what's interesting about the media is that they've played a pivotal role here in intimidating the judges at the district court, because when it was clear that Netanyahu's attorney was going to make this request to the district court, you started getting all the court reporters doing these leery reports, threatening the judges in the district court with humiliation, with shame, with attacking them if they even think for a second that he deserves a postponement of his testimony, then they're going to go down in history. And this was in Channel 12, Guy Pelly, Channel 13, Aviad Glickman. All of these people who have been part of the lawfare operation, pivotal, key characters and the cast of characters that has been carrying out this legal coup against the prime minister. So they've been doing that. And so they're setting it up right now. They're setting it up because he said, he can't be prime minister and give testimony at the same time. So now, just before I started recording this show, I saw the news brief that said that Netanyahu said, fine, I'm going to give my testimony on December 2nd. Go to hell. But here's the problem, right? I don't want him to give testimony on December 2nd. I'm sure that he's going to just whack every single ball that they throw him out of the court, and they're going to look like idiots. There's no doubt in my mind that his testimony is going to clear him, and they're going to look terrible when he's done. But I don't care. That's not what I care about. What I care about is having a prime minister who's running the war. I don't want this trial right now. I want this trial to be postponed until the cows come home. As far as I'm concerned, it's not important. I voted for Netanyahu, knowing full well that he was holding trial, and I didn't care. And here I just want to go back for a second to talk about, remember, like a little reminder of what this trial is about. So Netanyahu was indicted in 2019, just before the elections in April of 2019, in an open bid to make him lose, to foment his defeat in the election. Stunning. It was actually the Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit announced Netanyahu was that he was going to indict Netanyahu. That was we remember he had 4 elections. So right before the second elections, he announced that he was going to indict him. But before the 19 elections, he announced that he was thinking about indicting him, which is like, who does that? But he did it in order to try to change the outcome of the elections, and then he indicted him before, I think, the third election. And before the second election, he said he gave a press conference while Netanyahu was at the White House with Trump, and they were unveiling the deal of the century for peace. And there was a split screen. There was Avichai Mandelblit on the right, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Donald Trump on the left in the White House. And they were announcing the peace plan, and he was announcing that he wanted to send Netanyahu to jail. Okay, so there are 3 charges that Netanyahu is accused of, is indicted for in 3 different filings. So they're all being tried, one after the other. So and they're named by numbers. So what happened when they were building this case is that the police investigators, acting at the orders of the prosecutors, literally tortured Netanyahu's top advisors and his friends, including Shaul Alovich, of a 70-plus-year-old man with a heart condition, his wife, Iris, and his mother, and his son. And threatened to bankrupt him unless he turned state witness against Netanyahu. He didn't, because he said, I have nothing to give. They went after Shlomo Filber, who was the Director General of the Ministry of Communications. They held him under arrest for weeks, like they did the Alowiches, until he broke. And they threatened his son. They threatened his businesses. They destroyed his reputation. They did it to Nir Chefetz, who was Netanyahu's spokesman. They destroyed his marriage. They did it to Ari Harrow, who was Netanyahu's the head of his office. In case 2000, they destroyed his family. They got him divorced from his wife. They broke up his family. They tried to bankrupt him. They destroyed his reputation. They destroyed his health. All of these things, to try to get all of them, to force all of these to people who are upstanding citizens, who are public servants, to go against the prime ministers, to become public witnesses. And as I said, over the past 4 years of testimony of the prosecution's case, all of these prosecution witnesses, including these 4 men or 3 men, because Shaul Alovich is also a defendant here. So Chefetz, Harrow, Filbert, they all were star witnesses in the end on behalf of the prime minister, because it worked out that they had nothing on him. It was cool. Let me just start with the latest headlines, and I'm going to move backwards to the analysis so you know what's going on.